Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Mike. Thanks for joining me this morning. What are we talking about this week? Oh, that's right. Distractions. Oh my God, the distractions. I had a long list of good intentions last week. I did. I had our weekly schedule written down. I was determined and focused. I didn't get hardly any of that stuff done. Why? Oh, the distractions, the endless distractions, Mike, that's why. Where does this come from and what can we do about it? All this week, this is one of my favorite subjects. We all suffer from it, especially right now, right? So you're trying to work from home. The kids are home from school. They're not supposed to be, but they are. Everybody else is home. The distractions are endless, aren't they? I know. Yesterday we covered the difference between external and internal distractions. Look, I know all of us have heard all the advice and all the strategies for dealing with the external things. You need to have a dedicated workplace in your home, and that's where you go to do your work, right? You've heard all this. And maybe you put a little sign on the door that tells the kids, Daddy's working, don't come in. You've heard all this stuff. I'm not going to spend any of your time on dealing with external distractions. But the internal distractions, that's the tricky part. That's the big part. That's the part that gets us. You know, we covered when it comes to internal distractions, we started yesterday talking a little bit about the blamers, the shamers, and the claimers, right? And we're all one of these three kinds of people. The blamers, the distractions are because of everything else and everybody else. This is happening to me, right? You know what I'm talking about. Well, I would have gotten all this done, but the kids won't leave me alone. Oh, so you're going to blame it on the kids, are you? Okay. The blamers. Then there's the shamers. The shamers don't blame anybody else. They blame themselves. I'm dumb, stupid, and lazy. That's why. I must be a loser. I must be apathetic. I'm not inspired and motivated. Oh my God. Keep saying that stuff to yourself. That makes me depressed even playing with it for a second. Yeah, we got the blamers, and then we've got our shamers, and then we've got the claimers. And the claimers have just evolved. My contention is everybody started off as a blamer or a shamer, but then we evolved. We became more skilled. We became more effective, and we progressed into a claimer. And the claimer says, yeah, this is happening. Yeah, we've got this going on in the world these days. So what am I going to do about it? How am I going to adjust? How am I going to change? And the claimers, they realize that that's where their control and their power lies. How they adjust to what's happening. Not blaming people for what's happening, not blaming themselves for what's happening. They just go, okay, this is happening. Now what am I going to do about it? The kids are home from school, and I didn't expect that to happen. Now what am I going to do about it? And for those of you with kids, you know what I'm about to say to you. You are the most expensive babysitter in the world. And if that's your only strategy for dealing with it, then I'm going to say to you, you haven't put your back into it yet. And we can sit down and build strategies for you. But you got your blamers, you got your shamers, and then you got your claimers. And you evolve into being a claimer. That's where your power lies. Not in what happens to you, but in how you respond to what happens to you. It's the only control and power we have. And it all lies there. Let's be clear about something as we're talking about dealing with distractions. Let's be real clear about this. Proclaiming abstinence in anything, proclaiming abstinence is not an effective strategy. And if you doubt me, you tell me when in your life proclaiming abstinence actually worked for you. I am never going to eat that stuff again. Right. And nobody believes that. I'm not going to eat bad food again. I'm not going to eat too much food again. I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to smoke. I'm not going to, whatever it is. I'm going to focus today and get stuff done. We'll see. You want to bet on that? Hey, look, I'm you. I'm an agent too. I fully get it. But just proclaiming abstinence, that's never worked for anybody with anything, ever. Not an effective strategy. So what do? Well, when you tell yourself you're never going to eat chocolate cake again, I'm never going to do that again, then that's all you can think about. I do not want you to think about little furry puppies. I do not want you to think, don't think about them. Have you ever had that song that you can't get out of your head? And you know, as soon as you start to hear the song, you're like, oh no, this is going to get stuck in my head all day long, right? When you tell yourself you're not going to do something, that's all you can then think about. Many of you that know me know that I play golf and I like to play competitively. And I've had to learn this not only in my business, but in my golf game and at home too. Let me give you a quick little analogy. Let's say that I'm playing in a competitive golf tournament and we get to the last hole and the last hole has a pond in front of it. Okay? Now, if I tell myself, don't hit the ball in the pond. Make sure you don't hit the ball in the pond. Make sure you hit the ball plenty far enough so that it doesn't go in the pond. Where do you think that ball's going to go? It absolutely is going to go in that pond. Why? That's where my mind is focused. Now, a blamer, what would a blamer say? A blamer might say, oh, they shouldn't put a stupid pond right there anyhow. Or the wind was blowing and this happened to me. It's not my fault. It's everybody else's fault. The shamer would go, see, I just hit the ball in the pond again. I blew the tournament. I'm such a loser. A claimer would go, I'm not going to think about the pond. I'm not going to say, don't hit the ball in the pond. I'm going to retrain my mind to think differently. I want my mind to say what I do want to do. I'm going to hit the ball right into the middle of the green. I'm going to hit this ball high and soft, and it's going to land right in the middle of the green. I'm not bringing the pond into my conversation. I'm only telling myself what I do want to happen, not what I don't want to happen. Why? Because what I think about expands. If I think about the chocolate cake, even if it's to say I'm not going to eat the chocolate cake, oh, that's all I'm going to be able to think about. Don't think about those little furry puppies. Get them out of your head. What you think about expands, and your mind doesn't process negatives. Don't hit the ball in the pond. All my mind knows is pond. That pond right up there. That is absolutely where that golf ball is going. So claimers learn to refocus their thoughts into more effective actions. It's not going to think about the pond, not going to think about the chocolate cake. I'm going to think about what I do want in reference to the chocolate cake. Perhaps I refocus my thoughts like this. I enjoy eating healthy, nourishing foods. Maybe I want to think about fruit like an apple or a pear, right? I want to think about how I look better, how I feel better, how my body's healthier and able to respond to stress better, how more confidently I feel about myself, the empowering nature of eating healthy, nourishing foods. And not that, no, if I think about that chocolate cake, I just look fat and sluggish and bleh. I want to retrain my mind to think in more effective ways. Blamers and shamers, they're still back there and they're going to eat more of the chocolate cake because that's all they can stop thinking about. The more they say they don't want it, the more they think about it. And if that's not enough for you, watch this. Hang with me here. Pay attention. Stop multitasking right now. Pay attention to this. You can't call something a distraction unless you know what it is distracting you from. Now that's important enough for me to repeat that because you've got to get this. You can't call something a distraction unless you know what it's distracting you from. So if you don't have a written weekly schedule, how do you know you've been distracted? How do you know you've been distracted? Well, I create to-do list. I'm coming for your to-do list. Just hang with me a second. You can't call something a distraction if you don't know what it's distracting you from. Do you have a written weekly schedule? And are all the activities that you want to complete this week accounted for specifically in great detail in that weekly schedule? Don't tell me that you're going to spend an hour prospecting this morning. Tell me what kind of business development activity you're going to be doing, how much, and for how long. Now, I want to give you a tip before we close today. Every day I want to give you an actionable tip, right? So yesterday it was the 30-minute rule. And if you missed out on that, you can go to my group page on Facebook, The Path to 20 Million, and this is recorded and hosted there as well. So revisit the 30-minute rule. For today, the tip I want to give you is around emails. A huge time suck. The two biggest time sucks in business, emails and meetings. Emails are just a gigantic distraction for most of us. So here's what I want you to do for this week. Try it for this week. See if it's empowering for you as it is for me. It starts with this question. When does this email need a reply? Okay, now there's going to be several different choices to this, but when does this email that's in front of me right now, when does this need a reply? Okay, you're going to have junk. That's going to be most of it. That's immediate delete. It doesn't need a reply. Delete. Get it off your screen, get it out. I know some of you don't move anything out of your inbox. Huge mistake. Delete that stuff. Your urgent stuff. This is important. The house is on fire. This is critical. It needs to be acted on. Very important stuff. You know, it's like this much. It's like almost nothing. It's very, very small percentage of stuff that is that urgent. But if it is urgent, go ahead and reply to it right then on the spot. If it's so important, then reply to it immediately. Everything else I want you to account for in your written weekly schedule. I want you to have time where you deal with this stuff. And I want you to code. I use flags, and I want you to use colored flags, or your way of doing it. It doesn't really matter. But the junk, delete it and get it off your screen. The urgent, yeah, go ahead and take care of it. It's urgent. Something's really bad's going to happen if you don't deal with this right now. Everything else falls into one of two categories. This needs a response today, in which case I use a yellow flag, and this needs a response this week. Okay? Now, in my daily schedule, it's part of my weekly schedule, I have time in there for administrative tasks, which would include responding to emails. So the ones that are flagged, yes, this will need a response sometime today. I go back and work them at that designated time. The ones that are color-coded this week, which will be the majority of your emails, it doesn't require a response immediately. It doesn't require a response today, but it does require a response at some time. Great. Then I want you to have a time every week where you go through, and you might do that on Mondays and Fridays, okay? And you're responding to all of those. I use a green flag for those. I use a yellow flag for today. And then on Fridays, I'll go through and respond to everything, and it's a time in my schedule where I do that. What you're going to find when you do that, like for me this Friday, I find it every Friday. You know, half of those that I flagged that needed a response before the end of the week, they don't need a response anymore at all. They resolve themselves. Didn't really need me, didn't need my time, doesn't require a response after all. Over half of them you'll find will be that way. And I'm going to finish with you this morning with this note because Napoleon used this process. They didn't have email back then, right? But he used this process. His philosophy was he wouldn't open his mail for 30 days. Under the theory that almost everything resolved itself, never really needed him to begin with. And I contend that if it was good enough for Napoleon, it's probably good enough for me, and I would urge you to give it a try this week. Go ahead and delete the junk immediately. Get it off your screen. You don't need it to be there anymore at all. Respond to the urgent stuff, which is a small, minuscule. If you think it's more than a real small, less than 2%, you're overemphasizing things that aren't really urgent.